Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh, did you want to?
Sorry, I'll let you.
Next time.
I'm in love with you.
Snap out of it.
I'll have what she's having.
Too many guys think they're a concept, or I complete them, or I'm gonna make them alive. I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours.
Caustic wit is my religion.
I would make a great queen because I am so stubborn.
I say when it comes to stardom and Lauren, there are no accidents.
Hi, Karen Peterson.
Oh, is it me this week?
Yes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 141 of Citizen Dame, the podcast where Christopher Nolan's just a big old whiny baby. I am Karen Peterson, joined as always by Lauren Humphreys-Brooks.
I'm going to keep a running list of okay, who can fuck off? Christopher Nolan, Ari Aster, Denis Villeneuve. The list just keeps on getting longer and longer. I'm going to add David Fincher to that.
Yep. How are you, Lauren?
I'm not bad. I'm pretty good.
You had a good week?
Yeah. I have had a fairly good week, yes.
All right, good. Well, you know who has not had a good week is Warner Brothers. Of course, we talked about this last week. Warner Brothers announced that their entire 2021 slate is going day and date, which means that they will release it in theaters. They're not skipping the theaters, but they're also putting it on HBO Max, so people don't have to go risk their lives during a pandemic to sit in a not so crowded theater and watch movies that most of them are gonna be mediocre, let's face it. Well, there's been some stuff that happened this week, most vocally from Christopher Nolan, who is really mad about it, even though, as he says himself, he has no skin in the game because his movie already came out and tanked. So
in the United States, as some reply guy reminded me of, and then I was just like, yes, that is exactly the point of my comment. And also, by the way, the United States doesn't count, apparently. It's not a thing.
Who
cares about the box office in the United States? No one
ever talks about it. It's not important. Yeah. Well, now I'm curious. All right, it did do 359 worldwide. That is respectful. But 57 million in the US, which would also be great, except for the problem is that the movie costs $200 million to make. So even 359 worldwide is not good because it needed to make 500 million to really be profitable. So whatever.
I do not understand what Nolan and Warner Brothers in the release of Tenet thought was going to happen, given that, as we were discussing before we started recording, many of the definitely the theaters in major metropolitan areas have been closed, not open, not even partially open with limited capacity. The movie theaters in New York City have been closed since March of 2020.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what they thought was how you can release a film in that situation. And it doesn't matter if I wanted to go see it or I didn't want to go see it. I can't go see it because the fucking theaters are closed.
Right. And it's the same in LA County. So LA County and New York, the two biggest markets in the United States, which does matter, were closed. And the thing is, a lot of movies that have just been able, this has been a huge revival for drive-ins, but they specifically would not allow Tenet to be shown in a drive-in in a market where the indoor theaters were closed. So you couldn't go see Tenet you couldn't see Tenet at a drive-in in LA or New York. So that wasn't even an option.
So
this was so stupid.
Yeah, and so I don't know, it's just it didn't make money. It's no shit. Of course it didn't make money. If it'd been released in a normal world, then maybe, but it wasn't going to, because what do you think when the theaters are closed? You can't go to the theater. Even if you want to, in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
Right. Well, and there's such a film Twitter attitude about Christopher Nolan where they think that because they love him and because they think everything he does is gold. And let me tell you, I'm a big fan of a lot of his movies, but no, they're not all gold. Um, but they think because they love them and because, there's these like whatever big deep movies that the general audiences are going to flock to it because it's got Christopher Nolan's name on it, and that's not the case. I just randomly sampled some people that I know and asked them like name 3 Christopher Nolan movies besides Batman, and 2 of them told me, oh well, if you hadn't said he directed Batman, I wouldn't even have known that. And others were like, was he the guy that did Inception? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Wait, did he do other stuff? Yeah. So it's like outside of film Twitter, a lot of people, like, you can't just slap his name on it and sell your movie. People went and saw Batman, not because it was Christopher Nolan's Batman, but because it was Batman.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to get that. He's not the prestige name. It's the stuff that he's doing. People are interested in it and they want to go see it, not because it's got his name on it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, go on. I was gonna say that I think that some of this may come off like we or I or both of us maybe are like standing for Warner Brothers at some level. I think that Warner Brothers behaved really stupidly.
Yes.
Throughout this entire thing. And at the end of the day, Warner Brothers is about the bottom line. And yes, Christopher Nolan does make them money. So does Denis Villeneuve. So do all of these films. So they're trying to maximize their profit. Basically, that is the bottom line of all of this. This is not about art. This is not about how you're supposed to see art or anything like that. This is about how much money can they make in a situation where it's difficult to make money making movies right now and distributing movies right now because movie theaters are closed. Mm-hmm. And because even where they're open, people are far less likely to go to them. Because there's, again, a fucking pandemic that is not yet over in the United States and that is actually getting worse in a lot of places. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, Warner Brothers did a stupid thing and they're doing a stupid thing, and who the hell knows how this is all going to work out. But none of this is about the artistic integrity of the cinematic medium. This is about how much money they can make.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that their mistake was in saying, okay, we're doing this for all of 2021 right now. I think if they had done it for, okay, the next like X number of our releases, instead of changing the release dates again, we're going to go ahead and do this. I think people would have been less mad about it. But yeah, to just say, okay, we're putting our whole 2021 slate. I mean, I personally was glad they just went ahead and made the decision, but also, as we were talking about before we started recording, it really hadn't occurred to me that they didn't talk to anyone before they made this decision. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of back-end deals now that are going to be really messed up, which I'm sure Warner Brothers is glad about, because it's such a trick in the movie business that you have people negotiate like, oh, I'm going to get point whatever % of the profits, and then they do all these funky calculations so that technically even a movie that makes $1 billion had no profits. Talk to Peter Jackson and New Line about that one. But yeah, so there's all the unions, the WGA, the DGA, they're getting involved now because this affects the writers, the directors, the producers. Christopher Nolan tried to pretend that he cares about like the key grips and stuff because he's just like, yeah, this isn't about me. This is about these other people. And it is, but it's like, yeah, you're not the one that should be speaking for them. But anyway, there's a lot of issues here. And I think what's going to end up happening is that the unions are going to force Warner to undo this decision.
Yeah, it seems like, I think that one of the bigger issues, less so about talking to the individual filmmakers and more about talking with production companies like Legendary, who appeared not to know what the fuck was going on. Mm-hmm. This was a ploy, and it was a ploy that they thought they could just sort of impose on people, I guess, and they can't.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it seems highly likely that at least there's going to be a walk back of at least some of this. Although I mean, from a business perspective, I do kind of understand why they did what they did in terms of just deciding we're just going to release all of them in 2020, all of the 2021 slate like this. Because one of the first things that they were trying to do was to push people to go subscribe to HBO Max. And I had a moment, definitely, you know, like I have a Roku, which they haven't yet come to an agreement with HBO Max on.
Yep.
But I did have a moment where I was just like, oh, well, I should probably go subscribe to HBO Max now. And I was like, no, I shouldn't, because I can't actually get HBO Max via my Roku. So there's no point in me doing it. But there was that like almost immediate impetus, like, oh, I should go subscribe to this thing now.
Yeah.
And that's what they're going for. They're trying to burgeon up this streaming service that isn't doing great.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I had an HBO subscription, and I mean, I've had it for years. And as soon as the HBO Max hit and it was the same price as HBO, but I couldn't access HBO Max, I was just like, well, fine, forget it. I'm not paying for this until you guys work it out. So I canceled my HBO subscription with the knowledge that as soon as HBO Max is available on Roku, I will resubscribe. And I've had so many people, all men, of course, trying to explain to me, and they're friends and I love them, they're great people, but they've all tried to explain to me, oh, well, but you can do this and that, and you can hook up the blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, I know I can subscribe on my laptop. I can hook it up to my TV. I know I can do that, and I know how to do that. I don't want to have to. So no, until they figure their shit out, I'm just not going to pay them my $15 a month to not have to hook up my laptop to my TV.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They need to come. I mean, I'm gonna guess that they are gonna come to an agreement eventually, especially if this deal even partially moves forward, because otherwise both Roku and HBO are going to lose customers, and that's exactly what they don't want. HBO Max wants people to subscribe to their service, so they need to come to an agreement with one of the biggest. I don't know, what are Roku's even called, like.
It's a device. It's a streaming device.
Yeah, streaming device. There we go. I was about to say streaming service. I just said, but they're not really a streaming service, although there is the Roku channel. Everything is very confusing now.
Yeah, people, that's the other thing. Like, someone else this week was suggesting that Roku just needs to stop worrying about these deals with all these other companies and just start producing their own stuff. I'm like, no, they don't. They do what they do really well. They need to stick with it. Soon
I will be producing my own stuff. I just want to let everybody know.
Since I'm everyone else, in Spider-Man 3. So.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh man. But yeah, I think part of this Warner Brothers HBO Max thing is the timing is interesting, because this week was also this was not even an intended segue, but this week was the Disney investor meeting, where they announced that they've got close to 150 million subscribers on Disney Plus already. Which, I mean, it took a year to get there, but that's a lot of households, and that they're projecting that by 2024 they'll be in over 300 million houses. And I think that's including as they start to open up in more international markets. I don't think that's just here in the United States, because that would mean everybody has their own Rokus and stuff, and or whatever Disney Pluses. But yeah, so they announced their slate of stuff and confirmed what I've always known, that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is really a Star Wars tie-in. I'm just kidding. I just was like laughing so hard because they had this graphic of like all the Lucasfilm movies, and Indiana Jones and Willow were on there with all these Star Wars movies. So it looked like they were tying Indiana Jones and Willow into Star Wars.
I mean, it was honestly, so funny. At this point, I would not be surprised.
They should. Why
like,
not?
If they're just like, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is actually an alternate universe Han Solo is just like, okay, sure, fine. Nothing means anything anymore. It's fine.
We never did really know the truth about Han Solo's mother. I mean, not Han Solo. Indiana Jones's mother.
I was gonna say, do I care? I don't care.
No,
I don't care about Han
either.
Solo's mother. We never knew the truth about Han Solo's mother. You just said something that I do not care about in like the most remarkable way.
But
no,
you know,
or Indiana Jones's
so
mom,
many
like,
people do care about that.
Oh, God. Well, that's the thing. And like on the one hand, I was watching because you know I'm being on film Twitter, you can't avoid it almost. But I like logged on. I was just like, why the fuck is everyone talking about Disney? Oh, it's this Disney investors meeting because that's now like a Comic-Con, I guess. I don't know. Everyone's paying attention to this shit. And so like you know they're talking about all of these new Star Wars shows and everything like that. And I'm sitting there going like, and I've been watching The Mandalorian. But I was just like, you know what? I just realized that I don't really care. Like none of this is anything that I care about. Like I am enjoying The Mandalorian, but really what I enjoy is Baby Yoda. Like I've been informed that there's one of the new episodes does not include Baby Yoda, and I'm like, well, why the fuck did you make it then? Baby Yoda is the star. It is the Baby Yoda show, and everything else is stupid. But that's the thing. Like I'm sitting there going like, it's not that deep, guys. Let's just talk about this. It is not that interesting. It's not that deep. But of course, a lot of people don't feel that way, and I appreciate that. I don't care, but I appreciate that, and you know, it's fine. I'm just getting tired of it all being. I'm tired of the sheer amount of content that Disney just keeps on throwing out. And none of it is particularly new. It's not like they're developing new worlds. They're not developing the next Star Wars. They're developing more Star Wars.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Well, apparently I'm not because I like pretty much all the movies. But I looked at that slate of stuff and it's like I was interested in the fact that Patty Jenkins is directing a Star Wars movie. I think that is like, it's about time that a woman is directing, like first unit, like the director of the movie. So I'm excited about that. And I do want to see Taika's take on Star Wars. And I think after The Last Jedi, anything Rian Johnson does, I'm there for. But it's even with all that, even with directors that I really like, that I really admire, and that I'm such a huge fan of, with those and then all these other shows and spin-offs and whatever, it really does feel like too much. It's like all this stuff is gonna all tie together. It's all gonna like fit in somehow, and you've got like The Mandalorian as a backdoor pilot for this Ahsoka show, and you've got this and that, and it's just like now you're gonna have something with like people who are barely introduced. I don't know. And it's a lot. And I know that there are people who are gonna be really excited about it, but I realize the same thing. Like I don't care about all this. And it makes me wonder, like, is it going to be one of those things where if you don't watch this show, then you're not going to understand what's happening on that one? Or will they try to keep the storylines separate enough that you can follow one without having to watch it all? I don't know.
I mean, this has always been my problem with a lot of the Star Wars stuff. And it's my problem also with a lot of the Marvel stuff, a lot of the DC stuff, is that after a while, I found this like with the last few Avengers films, and I've definitely found this with some of the Star Wars things, I'm sitting there going like, I have no idea who these people are. And I'm supposed to, because they're referencing things that have obviously happened. Right. And I'm like, is this like a backstory that they haven't told us yet? Or is this like actually something that happened in a previous film or TV show that I don't remember? And the problem is that after a while, I'm just like, well, I don't care anymore because I cannot follow who the hell this side character is, right? That I don't recall. I mean, even watching The Mandalorian the other day, they bring back, right, the big bad of the previous season. And even then I was just like, wait a minute, who the fuck is that guy? Because it was like this big reveal. And I was like, wait a minute, who is he? I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's the guy who's like the bad guy who wanted something in the last one. I'm so tired.
Yeah, I will say I was very surprised, and now I'm going to speak this into the universe and someone's going to find the tweet and start harassing me. But I was really surprised last week when I made a joke about, well, it wasn't even a joke, I was serious, but I made a comment about Boba Fett and how, like, sure, he can be a badass now, that's fine, but let's not forget, he's the dude that, like, accidentally flew into the side of a barge and died, like, supposedly died, you know, like, he was not a badass when we met him. And I was really surprised at the fact that I didn't get a bunch of hate for disparaging a Star Wars character. But it's true, man. And now he's getting his own, like, spin-off show or whatever. And yeah. Sorry, now I'm thinking just random stuff, but like that also, I went down this weird rabbit hole last night because some people were complaining about Grace Randolph again, which of course they were, because why wouldn't you? But apparently I had totally missed this because I block her from my consciousness, but apparently she filed some story that Pedro Pascal like walked off the set of Mandalorian and quit halfway through the season, and they've had someone else filling in. And she's like standing by it. It's not true. Everyone's been saying it's not true. So then her big weird theory is that there's not really going to be a new Boba Fett series. It's going to be that Boba Fett takes over the Mandalorian. I was like, this girl is crazy.
I'm so tired. 2020 needs to hurry up and end, because I don't, as I saw someone earlier on Twitter say just like, okay, nobody asked to hold 2021's beer. Like, no. just like, because if it gets weirder, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
This nonsense needs to end. Oh, it needs to end. But also, if you watched this week's second to last episode of the season, you will know that obviously he stayed through the whole season. Or at least through the first 7 episodes of it. Anyway, just saying.
Well, right now, my main takeaway from The Mandalorian is that Baby Yoda will become a Sith Lord. Yes, I know what a Sith Lord is because I've paid enough attention. Because the dark side has better snacks. Like, yes. Because that, my impression from all of this is that Baby Yoda is completely driven by her stomach. Mm-hmm. And by the consumption of anything. Baby Yoda has committed genocide for snacks.
Yes.
So, and then felt kind of bad about it.
Sounds like the dark side to me.
So. Yeah. Then felt kind of bad about it, but was just sort of like, well, she's like a baby. I mean, she's just like, I would like to eat those eggs. Oh no.
If you feed the kid, then the kid's not gonna go eating stuff that it's not supposed to. That's how that works. That really was all on Mando. That was his fault.
Well, he's not being a very good dad, to be totally honest. Like, he's not really being like, here, let me explain to you that you're not supposed to commit genocide for eggs. Just to let you know.
Exactly. And kids are much more likely to follow the rules if they know why the rules are there.
Yep. There you go.
Oh man. All right. So from Baby Yoda, then we have to shift really briefly to we have a garbage person this week, which is someone that we've known has been a problem, but things have been kind of quiet for a while. But this week, FKA Twigs, whose real name is, I don't have it in front of me. Anyway, she was in a relationship with Shia LaBeouf for a while. It was a very, 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 very bad relationship, and she has now sued him for domestic abuse and I don't know, like assault. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
The suit is and this is from an NPR article that we'll also post on the notes.
Talia Barnett, that's her name.
Yeah. So she's accused him of abusing her physically, mentally, and emotionally during their year-long relationship, which began in 2018. It's a civil suit, and she alleges that he choked her and threw her against a car.
Yeah. I believe they met on the set of Honey Boy, which ironically is about him dealing with the abuse that he suffered as a child, and he plays his own father, a very abusive father. and it's a very good film. But clearly he really hasn't moved on from who he from the abusive stuff, and he's got a lot of work to do. A second ex-girlfriend came forward and said that he also had abused her. The stuff that's alleged in the lawsuit, it's pretty bad. It says things like when he was earlier this year, he had a movie out, The Tax Collector, which is a terrible movie. In fact, I think it's actually my number one worst movie of the year. But in that movie, he plays this guy who is basically, he kills people if they don't pay up for protective services. It's like anyway. But apparently, to get into character for that movie, he was going around shooting stray dogs just to feel nothing for killing animals, that kind of stuff. This is really sick.
That is okay. I'm just going to interrupt really quickly. Everyone keeps on describing this as method acting. This is not method acting.
No.
Method is a very particular kind of acting that was taught at the Actors Studio. Going around committing sociopathic acts is not method, right? You don't get to just be an abusive asshole and say well, I'm training for a role. It's no, right. That's not how acting works. It's not what the fuck? And we really need to stop excusing actors from this, because and it's not just Shia LaBeouf. It is there have been all kinds of actors. Jared Leto is another one who did really fucked up things, and it kind of got this sort of look how method he is. No, this is abuse. You don't get to abuse your co-stars and then say that it's method acting and that therefore it's okay. It's not okay.
Right. Exactly. It's really horrific. And I'm sure that some part of him is trying to excuse the behavior because, these aren't people's pets. But that when you hurt animals for whatever purpose, that is psychopathic behavior. And that is really, really concerning. I mean, obviously, abusing women is also very concerning, and that's also psychopathic behavior, and this all needs to be dealt with. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The fact that anybody would excuse that as, he's just getting ready for the role. The fact that he would try to convince himself that that's why it's okay. No, it's not. It's never okay. It's really terrible. And this stuff is just sick. He would count the number of times that she had to kiss or touch him in a day. There's so much just weird crap. And it's one of those things where it's oh man, I think a lot of people have kind of been rooting for him to get things together, and it seemed like he was finally starting to emerge from some of this stuff, but clearly he has not. And I mean, he really needs a lot of help. A lot. He needs to be locked up in a facility and get a lot of therapy and drugs and whatever.
And I mean, I think Honey Boy was a great film. And I think that art obviously can be very therapeutic for people, and that seemed to be what he was trying to do with that, at least in his performance and in his writing, etc. But that does not mean that it's just going to cure you, or that he's got to be able to actually look at his own behavior and decide, because at this point it's not about the abuse that he suffered. It is about the abuse that he is committing against other people and animals. And this is just, we really need to stop excusing actors for behaving like this. And it is primarily actors. We don't excuse actresses in the same way. And you can encourage someone like LaBeouf to get help or everything, but this is crazy. This is beyond anything that we should really be dealing with right now. It reminds me a lot, because recently this week, we talked about the Johnny Depp's continuing issues. But THR published a very good article that didn't really tell me anything new if you've been following what's been going on with Depp. It's pretty much the same stuff, but just sort of kind of laying out the collapse of Depp. And in some ways LaBeouf is very similar, that there's a sadness to all of this. It's like, this is sad. Mm-hmm. Because this is someone who's very talented and has a lot and had a lot of potential, has a lot of potential, etc., and is just obviously so fucked up that and so incapable of actually seeing that they are fucked up.
Yeah.
And they need help. They need someone that they trust to be able to say to them, you need serious psychological and emotional help. Mm-hmm. In order to become a full person again or something. And it's something similar with Depp, that Depp is obviously off the deep end. Yeah. And it's sad. It is sad because you look at these guys, you're like, these guys are really talented, and there's a lot of talent that is still there, so there's no reason why they can't get help and improve their lives and improve their art. Mm-hmm. But we can't keep on making excuses for them.
Exactly. And because making those excuses just enables the behavior to continue, and that needs to stop. One thing that the one thing in all of this where I feel like Shia did do kind of the right thing was in his statement to the New York Times. Now, obviously he's denying most of what's in the lawsuit, although he didn't deny all of it. So but one thing he did say was, this is a quote, "I'm not in any position to tell anyone how my behavior made them feel. I have no excuses for my alcoholism or aggression, only rationalizations. I've been abusive to myself and everyone around me for years. I have a history of hurting the people closest to me. I'm ashamed of that history, and I'm sorry to those I hurt. There's nothing else I can really say." Now, this is the thing, and I think I was telling you this, Lauren, that everybody who does stuff wrong, they just need to copy and paste that, like pull out whatever doesn't apply to them. Like, that is the way you apologize for stuff. And it doesn't make it okay, but you don't sit there and say either, no, none of this happened, or, well, I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry if you didn't understand. It's, I'm sorry that I hurt people, and I don't get to tell you how to feel about what I did. Like, that's the way you handle that. Now, that doesn't excuse all the things that he did, and he does need to make that right as much as he can make it right. And he needs to correct the behaviors, obviously, but that's the way you apologize for stuff, dudes.
Yeah, it's one of the few things that he's done right. And it's really, really sad that, like, I think we talked about this yesterday, that I was like, I think that he's probably one of the only people that has been accused of abuse who's actually said that. Yeah. Who's actually, like, not apologized, not necessarily accepted a responsibility for his behavior, but has at least said, this, you have a right to be hurt by me. Like, you have a right to feel hurt. And it's sad when we can be like, oh, that's kind of admirable. It's just like, no, it's not admirable. It's like human. Yeah. Which is weird that someone who has shown such a small, like, so little empathy and stuff was able to release a statement that actually does have some degree of empathy behind it. So, I mean, maybe it's because he just didn't write it. I don't know, but anyway, let's talk about something more fun. Let's talk about horror movies at Christmas time. Yes, one of the weirder subgenres of horror.
I know, and it's great. I watched some interesting stuff last night, we'll just say that. So first of all, we did throw out the question of what are some of your favorite Christmas horror movies, and the last I looked, we only had one response. It was from William Bibiani, who said, "Home for the Holidays, a slasher that," this is not to be confused with the 1990s rom-com, by the way.
See, when I saw that initially, I was just like, are we going to argue that that's a horror film? I mean, I guess he kind of could, but... Yeah.
Anyway, it's a slasher that predates the original Black Christmas by several years. by the screenwriter of Psycho, starring Sally Field, Eleanor Parker, Jessica Walter, Julie Harris, and Walter Brennan. Nobody ever talks about it, but it's pretty cool. First of all, yeah, with that cast, why does no one ever talk about it? Second of all, why the hell is it not available anywhere on any streaming services ever? You can't even rent it. So, because I tried, it's not available. He also added, also Elves, because HFS is Elves, the weirdest Christmas horror movie ever. Also couldn't find that anywhere either.
So if anyone knows where we can watch these films, I would really like to see Home for the Holidays. That sounds like just that
sounds
cast.
Amazing.
Just that cast sounds great. Like I am down for that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, same. So, Lauren, why is it that horror movies just are so fun at Christmas?
Well, see, this is one of the things that I love about Christmas because I get to tell people this, and a lot of people don't realize this. Christmas, for a very long time, was basically a time for ghost stories. And particularly on Christmas Eve, the Victorians delighted in telling ghost stories to each other. The reason why there are 3 ghosts in A Christmas Carol is because that's the tradition that Charles Dickens is coming out of. It is a horror story. So there was a tradition of you kind of sit down around the fire, etc., and you tell scary stories. A lot of M.R. James's ghost stories, if you've ever read any of those, are based on, they're considered to be Christmas ghost stories. So they're the kind of stories that you tell on Christmas Eve in order to scare the children. And when you really think about it, a lot of Christmas traditions, many of which are based in paganism, and developments of pagan ideas, are scary stories, right? The whole concept of Santa Claus and if he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, that's pretty fucking scary. But for a very long time, we talk about Krampus, we talk about various figures who are kind of the accompaniment of Santa Claus throughout European history, where you've got Black Peter and different kind of almost demonic figures who are walking around with Santa Claus, essentially punishing the bad little boys and girls. And that's, again, very frightening. And some of those stories are terrifying. Like, it's not just getting coal in your stocking. It's like he will carry you off. That's scary, right? So there's this wonderful, I think, kind of very pagan, very frightening sensation around a lot of Christmas, and it makes sense. It's the beginning of winter. It's very close to the winter solstice. It's that point where everything is getting very dark and cold, and everything is dying, and so there is that, like, let's build a fire and let's kind of frighten ourselves just a little bit. So I think that we need to embrace Christmas horror a lot more. And I'm someone who did not embrace the concept of horror at Christmas for a very long time. So I was like, no, Christmas is about light and joy. It's like, yeah, but it's also about the shadows, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think this is where I think it ties into the discussion we had last week of, like, really what is a Christmas movie? And I'm like you. I hadn't really, there's always been some that I've enjoyed over the years, but, like, then there's the movies that are not ghost stories. They're not what's the word, supernatural type things. Slasher movies. How do those tie in to Christmas? Like, how does that work? Like Black Christmas, and there are a few others too.
Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think.
Which I have not big one seen.
No, me neither. I just know about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I think that when you get something like a slasher movie, I do think that Christmas, there's a certain degree of contrast that's going on, because we do associate Christmas as being like, oh, it's this time of joy, right?
Yeah.
But it can also be, people talk about it, suicide rates go up of the month of December and directly before and after Christmas. So there is this like darkness, I think, that is connected to it, and some of what we do during Christmas is kind of an attempt to keep the darkness at bay. So, the lighting of candles, lighting of fires, the sort of, we're going to put up all of these decorations, we're going to make everything very bright. But like I said, with brightness comes shadows, and those shadows are a part of the season as well. And I think that they are almost this, don't want to get too anthropological, but they are almost this like primitive view of like, okay, this is the time when everything is dying, when all of the night creatures basically are coming out looking for food, and we are trying to protect ourselves. And so I think that in developing horror stories around this time, we kind of engage with that primitive fear. And in some ways kind of catalyze it, be like, okay, we're going to see the face of the terror, basically. And dispel it in some ways. So when you get something like Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas, which is all like a slasher movie, it's the return of the repressed. So is the new one. But it's that return, it's that fear, the things that are lurking in the shadows that maybe during the summer we don't really pay much attention to, but the darker it gets, the more we're aware of them.
Yeah, but I think that there's an interesting paradox going on too, because I think like we're all geared up for horror at Halloween, but then after that, then we get into this, happy time that's all about bringing people together. And I feel like in a lot of ways that lures us into this false sense of security, even though there's a lot of darkness happening, like you said, and a lot of depression and things like that. But I think there's also this ignorance to danger, because it's Christmas time, it's a season of hope and joy, and it's another way that in a lot of instances, it's another way that we are blind to potential dangers because we're not necessarily ready for it. And I think that's where especially the Christmas time slasher movies come in, because you're not as careful or prepared as you might be just a month or two earlier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it all feeds into, like you're saying, that paradoxical nature of the season, that it is about this light and joy, but it is also about this darkness, because you kind of can't have one without the other almost.
Yeah, it's true. So let's talk about some of our favorites.
Well, we talked about this last week a little bit, but I really want to talk about Gremlins again, just because I love Gremlins. And Gremlins scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, because it is not a kid's movie.
Nope. But it may be rated PG, but it is not a kid's movie.
What actually frightened me is that I made my dad promise he would never climb down the chimney. We didn't have a chimney. Okay, we did not actually have a chimney, but I was terrified that he was going to do something like the description in Gremlins. And he was just like, I promise. I was just like, no, you have to promise. Just like, I promise that's not something that I'm going to do. And but like that movie just really, really bothered me. Now that I'm older, I love it. Like, it's a great Christmas movie.
Yeah. What do you love about it?
I like the fact, I mean, Joe Dante's sort of attitude towards horror, I think, is always a lot of fun. But I like the fact that there is this sort of anarchy that gets going, that it isn't just like the Gremlins are not just evil. They're just like, I want to fuck things up. I'm going to, we're going to go caroling at someone's house and like really butcher carols, and we're gonna climb into electrical systems and destroy them, all of that. So it isn't just like oh, we're gonna murder people as in a slasher movie. It's more like we're gonna cause havoc. Everything, we're gonna like burn shit down, and that's what's so much fun about it. And in terms of the actual Christmas thing, I think that, again, what we were talking about, this kind of contrast between the light and the dark, you've got this adorable little Mugwai who is like the original Baby Yoda. I mean, he's so fucking cute. And he produces evil. I mean, that's what, and even evil to the extent that he's even scared of them. He's like, oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he wasn't in danger from them though. Like, I think eventually later he kind of is, but like they're just messing with him. He's like,
yeah, they just fuck around with them.
Yeah, they're not trying to get him, but like then there's other people like Mrs. Deagle or whatever that in fact they don't really seem to mess with the animals too much either, because they just kind of harass Barney the dog too. I was watching this again recently. Yeah. It's such a fun movie because of exactly that. It's just about just like wreaking havoc, just causing a lot of chaos. You never know what's gonna happen next. And there's so many little details of it that are really fun too, like listening to the radio show and like Rocking Roddy or whatever his name is, and like they come into the studio and listening to the police not believe what's happening, and then all of a sudden they like are completely outnumbered. They don't know where to go, what to do next. They're just getting all these really weird reports all over town, and it's just fun, like when they're running through Main Street or whatever, and it's like just absolute madness, and it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Endlessly rewatchable. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's another one we should talk about?
Well, I wanted to mention Rare Exports.
Yes, which is on Shudder, and I have not watched it yet. In fact, Shudder has a dark Christmas like category, so check that out. There's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, and Rare Exports is a lot of fun, and it's it kind of it's this sort of harkening back to what we were talking about, the kind of old mythologies more about Santa Claus, but it's a Finnish film, and basically what happens is a British research team is like doing core samples in the way far north in Finland and Lapland, and what happens is they awaken sort of the Uber Santa Claus. He's like this old demon basically. And he controls all of these other Santa Clauses, who are essentially his like evil elves. And this then becomes basically about the story of this boy and his father who find one of these evil elves, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And I'm not going to spoil the entire thing because it really is a lot of fun, but it basically turns into this Christmas monster movie that is somewhat similar to Krampus in the sense that it's like this awakening of this demon that then wreaks havoc on this family. But it's also about like fighting back. It's that fighting back against the darkness, and it takes place in Finland. So you've got this very sort of sardonic, dry Finnish humor. The Finns also do think that Lapland is apparently where Santa Claus comes from. I remember having an argument with my Finnish flatmate once about this. She was just like, no, Santa's from Lapland. I was like, where the fuck do you get that Santa's from Lapland? Santa is from the North Pole. And we just like had this whole debate about like where Santa comes from. And just like, no, well, Lapland is the North Pole. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Just like, I know that Santa comes from Lapland. So it's a lot of fun. Like, I really recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's on my list on Shudder. But while I was scrolling through that collection of dark Christmas movies, I found last night Christmas Evil, which John Waters has called the greatest Christmas movie ever made.
Oh my God, I need to see it.
Yeah. So I watched it. It's from 1980.
Oh no.
And it was like, oh, okay, this is Taxi Driver at Christmas time. It's
oh no.
Yeah. It's about this guy who when he was a kid, it like the truth about Santa Claus was ruined for him in a pretty interesting way, a way that no kid should have to experience. And Anyway, so he grows up, but for some reason, he's still obsessed with Santa Claus. And as an adult, he like works at this toy factory, and he's totally obsessed with Santa, and he gets really harassed by people at work and stuff. And there's like these kids that live across the street, and there's one little girl who's super sweet, and then there's like these boys that are just like total assholes. And so he just dresses up like Santa on, I guess, on Christmas Eve, and decides to punish the naughty people. So it's really wild. It's very it's one where like it's a lot of buildup, and the first murder doesn't happen until almost an hour in, but then the payoff at the end is pretty great. It's a pretty crazy, yeah. The last like 10 minutes are nuts, but
wow.
Yeah, you definitely need to watch it. But I did feel like, okay, I would probably feel differently about this if I had watched it 40 or even 30 years ago. But now I'm just so tired of sad white dudes who have no reason to be sad, just like destroying things. So
yeah, I can see that.
It's definitely not aged well.
Well, I mean, whenever John Waters recommends a film, you should always be like, oh, this is something I want to see.
Yeah, you know it's going to be really weird. It's going to be crazy. Apparently, he used to show this at his Christmas party every year.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, and when you watch it, it makes total sense that John Waters would love this movie. And it's not even that I didn't like it. I thought it was interesting. I'm glad I've seen it. It just was like thematically, I'm like so over this shit.
Yeah, there's always that. There's definitely been some films that I've seen recently that I'm like, you know what? If I would turn off my brain a little bit, I could probably enjoy this. But God, I'm mad about this sort of thing.
Yeah. I did think it was interesting because the guy that plays the main character in it is Fiona Apple's father, and people were like, there was all these articles about that. I was like, oh, that's fun. That's a fun little random trivia fact.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So what's another one you got?
Well, I do think that we need to talk about not the original Black Christmas, but the remake of Black Christmas, which we have mentioned previously, and I have said numerous times that I believe every man needs to see that movie and understand it, because I loved it, and I wish that I'd gone to see it in the theaters, because it was released in a very small window, and I just did not get to see it in theaters, but I did finally get to watch. I rented it this year, I think, actually, and it's such a good film, and it made me so angry. Because it got at the reality of things. But it's interesting to take, slasher films and to kind of give them this feminist twist. And to do this, again, it is a kind of a question, well, is it really a Christmas movie? Because it really just takes place at Christmas. There's not much other Christmassy things about it. But at the same time, you've got this darkness that's like, okay, we're going to deal with this now, rather than continue to sort of brush it aside and to sort of decide, oh, well, that's just the way the world is. Like, no, we're gonna actually deal with misogyny and violent misogyny, and this whole kind of forcing women to be in their place and everything. And it is such a fun film. It is an enraging film. And so well done, and I completely get why a certain swath of dude critics hated it. And that's why everybody should watch it, because trust me, like, if you have not seen this movie, there is a reason why there are some men that hate it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and it's the movie that explains, yes, all men.
In really explicit terms. Like, it is right. It does not pull punches. That's the thing that I really liked about it. It wasn't allegorical. It wasn't like, we're going to sort of gently hint at this. Just like, no, this is what's happening.
Yeah, it really does drive home the point of complicity and how even if you are not the perpetrator, if you are not taking a stand against this stuff, then you are also guilty. And that goes for women too, because there's a lot of women who protect that behavior. And it does such a good job of confronting that, like really truly confronting it. And it's just, yeah, it's such a I feel like it's in a lot of ways a cathartic experience too, watching it. And I was rewatching the original last night because it'd been a while since I'd seen that, and I was thinking about how different they are. I mean, they have the same basic premise of these sorority girls in a house and someone's coming after them, but there's some really important differences. And I think the biggest thing is the theme, because in the original, the killer, like, obviously is crazy and you don't really know exactly why he's doing what he's doing, but in this it's very clear what's, like, by the time you get to the end, you know motives, you know everything you need to know. And it's just so compelling, and it just is so good to watch. And yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Also,
Carrie Elwes is having a great time. So
yes,
there's that.
he's so
gross. He's so gross. Yep. I'm just like, oh, this is good. I really hate you.
Yep, exactly. So I think maybe part of the reason that I was a little bit just annoyed by Christmas Evil last night was because right before it, I'm telling you, go on this collection on Shudder. Not all of them are going to be good, but there was one that caught my attention. It was called Better Watch Out. It's from like a couple years ago. And I was like, ooh, this sounds really interesting. And I watched it, and I'm like, it really did not set me up for another movie about a white boy who's just mad at the world for no real reason, because that's what Better Watch Out is. It's basically this, it's like a babysitter story, and for some reason these parents hire this babysitter to take care of their 14-year-old son, or however old he's supposed to be, and he's got a crush on the babysitter. And he's reading this thing about how, like, girls like, basically that if you make girls scared, that they'll, you know, be all into you or whatever. And so he's trying to do that. Well, then things go wrong. Very wrong. It's not a great movie, don't watch it. But it's just, it was another one where it was just, yeah, that whole thing of just male entitlement, and it could have been done better. It was one where I wished, I was like, I would love to see a female version of this, like a remake of this story. Just yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but see, I do admit that I avoid some of these films a little bit because so many of them sound exactly like that it's just, it's a slasher movie with a Christmas theme that, you know, is basically about sad white boys.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't care about sad white boys anymore. Sad white boys can go fuck themselves. Like, just exactly. Like, oh, isn't it scary? It's just like, you know, like, give me the driller killer, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, that is not a sad white boy.
No, that is a weirdly hot rock star.
In the sequel, I'm talking about the sequel. The original, like, less so, but
yeah,
even that's
first
a very
one that he's a sad white guy, but in the second one, he's just really hot.
He's just this really hot demonic, like, rocker. Like,
you can draw me. That's fine.
Wow, Karen. Anyways,
anywho, so
Krampus. Let us mention Krampus, which I adore. And again, that it kind of comes back to, you know, something similar to Gremlins. It has that humor to it, and and that anarchy also, that a lot of it isn't really just about the Krampus, it's about like all of the weird little creatures that come out.
I've never looked at gingerbread men the same way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just fucking funny, like, and also frightening. Like, I actually did find it quite scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's got such a great cast. It was interesting because I had never heard this legend before the movie, before the Toni Collette movie came out. But apparently there's like lots of versions of this, and I don't know, I was really surprised by that. But yeah, it's got, man, who else is in this? Adam Scott, Conchata Ferrell, Allison Tolman, I love her. So it's got this really fun cast, and it's just this crazy story. And yeah, I agree with you. It's so fun to just watch like just chaos ensue, and watching people get attacked by like their Christmas tree and stuff. All because, and this is what we were talking about last week, where it's about not just that it's set at Christmas time, but it also embraces the spirit of Christmas. And Krampus is very much because of the fact that everyone's just kind of like, whatever, Christmas, like, who cares? You know, it's all about just tradition for tradition's sake, and nobody has that spirit anymore. And that comes back to get them.
Well, yeah, and it's that kind of horror of the holidays also, and by that I mean if you're from one of those families where like tons of people get together and then all of the anger comes out, all of the, like, you know, there's this certain, I think that some of it is that there's so much pressure to be happy,
mm-hmm.
that everyone is just like, well, I'm really resentful of you from what you did in 1973, you know.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So there's all of this, you know, family conflict that develops, partially because just everybody's getting together, but also because it's the holidays and there's like this traditional aspect to it, that this is what we do on the holidays kind of thing.
Right. It's just, you have to just suck it up. This person's going to come over and that person's going to do that. And it's just, this is just what we do because we're family and we have to. And it's part of that forced alliance, I guess. So, yeah. And it's just a lot of fun.
It is a fun movie.
In fact, I need to watch it again. It's been a while. I should just make that part of the holiday rotation. Let's see. You also added Anna and the Apocalypse, which I regret to admit that I have not seen it.
Anna and the Apocalypse, I didn't love it the way that I think a lot of people did, but I get why people like it. It's a Christmas zombie movie.
Mm-hmm. Which I didn't even realize it was a Christmas time movie until just this week when people were talking about it.
Yeah, it's like a Christmas time zombie musical comedy. And I think that it misses some beats for me. I think that there are places where it actually gets too serious, and which bugged me just a little bit. I was like, I think you really needed to push harder on the humor here than the dark shit. But it has a lot of really good elements to it, and I think for that reason that it's definitely one to watch and see what you feel about it. It's got some great music and some really bizarre like musical cuts and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely something I think to see, even though I have very mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, it's one that I've been meaning to watch. I just haven't, and people have loved it and have been talking about it for 3 years, and I know I suck. I still haven't seen it, and I think it's on Amazon Prime, so I just need to watch it. So, well, here are a few others that are just. I found this list on Rotten Tomatoes of 28 Christmas horror movies ranked worst to best. So, let's see. The Dorm That Dripped Blood from 1982, 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Jack Frost from 1996. ATM, which I've never heard of. The 2006 Black Christmas, 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, which is on Shudder. I saw that, but I was like, but I haven't seen the first one. Will I be confused? I
was wondering about that too. I was like, well, I'll watch it, but what do I need to know something beforehand, or is this like, because honestly, I kind of wish that I had watched Slumber Party Massacre 2 before I saw Slumber Party Massacre 1, just because I loved it so much, and then I could have seen it earlier. But
yeah. Yep. Let's see. While She Was Out from 2008 with Kim Basinger, Lucas Haas, Craig Sheffer, and Jamie Starr. Never heard of it. Female director. Look at that. Now I'm gonna have to find this. A suburban housewife heads out for a quick trip to the local mall, only to find herself trapped in. Sorry, it cut off. Oh, now I just found another thing that says, oh, push to the breaking point. Never mind, I don't want to watch this. Push to the breaking point, an abused woman turns the tables on the gang of thugs who want to beat and rape her. Maybe we'll skip that one.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Although if she's turning the tables and they haven't, then maybe. I don't know. Let's see. P2 is a Christmas movie. I had no idea. Black Christmas from 2019. There's Silent Night, Deadly Night. The first one. Wind Chill from 2007. That's with Emily Blunt. Red Christmas, which Dee Wallace. That is the mom from E.T.
And I believe that that's on
Shudder.
Shudder, yeah.
Yeah. Saint. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo from 1971. Shelley Winters. Oh man. That sounds great. The Gingerbread Man from 2005. I feel like I remember that movie, but I didn't see it. But Gary Busey's in it. So.
I was going to say, are you sure it's not the Ginger Dead Man?
Oh, it is Ginger Dead Man. Sorry, I read that wrong. The Ginger Dead Man.
I highly encourage you to go to YouTube and watch some clips from that because it is fucking insane.
Awesome. Okay, I will. Let's see. Silent Night. This is number 14. Silent Night from 2012. Malcolm McDowell, Donald Logue. A loose remake of the horror classic Silent Night, Deadly Night. Krampus is at number 13. The 1974 Black Christmas is at number 12. The Lodge. Oh yeah, The Lodge does. That actually does take place at Christmas. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, this year's film, The Lodge, with Riley Keough and Jaden Martell. It's I feel like I need to watch it again because when I saw it, I did not love it, but I also wasn't sure that I disliked it either. So I need to give that another shot. I really like the director's other movie, Goodnight Mommy, which I know I've mentioned here, but number 10 is Dead End from 2003. Number 9 is Christmas Evil, John Waters' favorite Christmas movie. Number 8, The Day of the Beast. I don't know that movie.
No, me neither.
It's
I saw that.
Spanish language film from Alex de la Iglesia. The Children, 2008. Never heard of that either. Unsettling and spine-chilling low-budget British horror with effective and disturbing scares. Number 6 is Anna and the Apocalypse. 5 is A Christmas Horror Story, which I think is also on Shudder right now. William Shatner.
I think that I've actually seen that one. Is that one of the? It's like a it's an anthology film where it's like separate stories that are kind of loosely tied together. It's fun. It's not great, but it's one of those that like I think I had it on in like the background while I was cooking or something, and it was diverting. So it was enjoyable, not too scary, but not like too absorbing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. Number 4 is Inside à l'intérieur from 2007. It's a French film. Let's see. Number 3 is Gremlins. Number 2 is Better Watch Out. What? That's that one I was watching last night.
Yeah.
No. 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. People are crazy. And number 1. Any guesses?
No.
It is one that we have actually talked about today.
Is it Rare Exports?
It is.
Oh, good.
The highest rated Christmas horror movie on Rotten Tomatoes is Rare Exports, 90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to say though, if you Google just Christmas horror movies and you scroll through the like most popular ones, Home Alone is on there.
I guess it's a horror movie depending on your perspective.
I mean, you can read it like that, definitely. I was like, that's an interesting one. All right. And also, I didn't remember that this takes place partially at Christmas, I believe, but Curse of the Cat People. Which is the sequel to the Val Lewton film Cat People, but is much more about the kind of relationship between Irena, who is not, spoiler alert for Cat People, who is dead, and the daughter of the main couple from Cat People. And it's more almost like a fairy tale than it is a horror film or like a supernatural movie. Because this is a girl who's basically she befriends Irena. And her parents are constantly trying to like suppress her imagination basically. And it's about like them sort of accepting that their daughter is strange and is different and that that's okay.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's just been a really long time. I don't remember that. And I definitely did not remember that any of it took place at Christmas time. That's interesting. I need to watch both the Cat People movies again.
I was always really surprised by Curse of the Cat People because it's such a different movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Cool. Well, are there any others you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
That's pretty much it. I mean, of course, you can always watch a version of the original, like, Christmas Horror Story, A Christmas Carol, which involves ghosts. So
that is true.
And also has, like, the scary ghost of Christmas future who is terrifying.
He pretty much is. It's true.
In any version.
Yeah, it's true. He's always terrifying because the future is scary because it's unknown. It's funny because I mean I don't know what version is your personal favorite, but mine is Mickey's Christmas Carol, and
that's scary too.
It is, and I mean even Goofy as Marley is pretty scary in the beginning, like, and it's goofy, but I saw that we used to watch it every year and sometimes multiple times in a year. And I loved that version. And to me, that's like the definitive version. And when I finally read A Christmas Carol when I was older, it's like, and now I read it every year. It's so funny because it's like, they did such a good job with the Disney one that it's like, as I'm reading Charles Dickens, I'm like picturing Goofy's face on the door knocker and all this stuff. It's like, I can't get it out of my head. I've never been able to. So it's like when I'm reading Charles Dickens' novel, I picture Mickey and Donald and yeah.
Yeah, I really like A Muppet's Christmas Carol.
That one's great too, yeah.
And I also, and the one with George C. Scott tends to be my family's kind of favorite version.
That one's a good one too, yeah.
And what's really funny is that part of that film was actually filmed in Shrewsbury in the UK, and there's a cemetery that stood in for the cemetery where Scrooge finds his grave. And there's still a tombstone that if you look at it upside down, someone has carved Ebenezer Scrooge, and it's still there. It was there like the last time I went to Shrewsbury, so I think that's very cool.
That's awesome. How fun. Well, yeah. So I think that's about all we got this week. So let us know what some of your favorite Christmas horror movies are, and whether they're ones that we mentioned today or ones that we didn't. And yeah, because we want to know what you're watching. And there are lots of ways that you can reach out to us. Of course, you can find us on Patreon if you want to help support the show. It's patreon.com/citizendame. And I know we've been talking about this for a couple weeks, but by the end of this month, or like going into 2021, our tiers are going to be all figured out and aligned. It's going to be cool. We're very excited for some of the stuff that's coming. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. We do have our Zazzle store, zazzle.com/citizendamepod. We'll be adding some new stuff for you. And but there's already some great stuff. There's t-shirts, there's masks, there's all kinds of stuff. Wear your fucking mask. And of course we have our Ko-Fi account, which is ko-fi.com/citizendame. And you can find us all kinds of ways if you want to send us messages and love letters. It's Twitter and Instagram at citizendamepod. And we do have our email, which is citizendamepod@gmail.com. And of course, be sure to check out our actual official website, which is citizendamepod.com. You can also find us individually. Lauren, where are you?
I am on Twitter and Instagram at LHBusiness.
And I am on Twitter and Instagram at Karen M. Peterson. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
No.
What happened?
He hates bright lights. You know, there's some things I forgot to tell you guys, and they're really important. Number one, he hates bright lights. We know that. But you got to keep him out of the sunlight. Sunlight will kill him. Number two, keep him away from water. Don't give him any water to drink. And whatever you do, don't give him a bath. And probably the most important thing, don't ever feed him after midnight.